Has it seriously been 3 months already?
Great Scott!
Well, I guess we better waste no time. You should already know the score by now, but for those who don't, every 3 months I drop a video just like this one where I go over what games I've played. Pick one, maybe two that stood out per month, tell you a little bit about why I liked them. Now, in the last tale from the backlog, I played 4 games, and I'm gonna be honest, not a single one of them was from my backlog. One was a game I got for Christmas and played immediately, the other 3 literally just released. However, this time, I've played an additional 8, and a good chunk of those are actual backlog titles. So without further ado, let's just get into what I played in April. So the 4 games I played this month, those being Returnal, Ratchet & Clank, Pragmata, and Invincible Versus, I gotta say I had the most fun with Ratchet & Clank. Now I am biased, I grew up with the PS3 trilogy, but it was so easy to just turn my brain off and relax whilst playing this one. The humour still hits today, and the gameplay was actually more like a platformer than I expected, especially since the parts of the series I have played toned that down massively to focus more on the action and the gadgets. I played this at the perfect time for me though. I needed something simple, as up until then I was playing a lot of big games like Yote with its big open world, or say Dragon Quest VII with its long story, for example. So it was nice to play something that was like 10 to 15 hours long and was easy to hop on and play for an hour or so after work every night. So if Ratchet was the highlight, what was the lowlight? Well, it wasn't Pragmata, I'll tell you that much. Unfortunately, it was in fact Invincible Versus. Now, I was hyped for this one. I even mentioned it in the last backlog video. And I did have fun with this one. The story was rough though, considering they kind of hyped it up a bit near the release online. I was sort of expecting maybe 3 to 5 hours of story, not, wasn't expecting Mortal Kombat 10 lengths where it was a chapter for every character, but I was expecting a couple of hours, Not the 1 hour that we did get. And I know the story isn't exactly the reason to get a fighting game nowadays, and I did play like 16 hours of it, most of it being online with a little bit of arcade mode thrown in there. And when I started playing it, I intended to platinum the game, but dude, the balancing in this was rough and killed it for me a little. I know Battle Beast is like a top 3 character when it comes to the
hierarchy of power
in the actual comics or the show, but did the devs really need to make him the most insufferable character to go up against? And this goes for Conquest as well. Both of these were massive pains to fight. Like, I'm being serious, the people that were playing BB or Conquest know like one combo and that is it, and it can be done back to back, so it's basically a touch of death. I know the game has mechanics to get out of combos, but if you can't take down the Beast or Conquest before he lands it, or before he even does it again, and you used up that meter, dog, you're losing a character. I'm sorry.
What you did was not nice! It's not nice to do that!
I've been on a roll these past 3 months. Another 4 games down. Can I get a little bit of recognition here? Thank you. You're all too kind. So in May, I did, as I said, 4 games. Those 4 games being Fire Emblem Echoes for the 3DS, Ben 10 Protector of the Earth for the PS2, Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition for the PS4, and then I rounded it off with Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight on PS5. So what was the highlight of May? I've got to give it to Lego Batman. Now, I know it wasn't a backlog game, believe me, I know, but come on, it's Lego Batman. Now, I haven't enjoyed a Lego game in a long time, and Skywalker Saga kinda sucked.
It's not true! That's impossible!
Look man, I'm sorry, it did. But this was great. As a kid, I always wanted a Lego Batman game that was based on the movies. Now for me, my Batman was Christian Bale. Yeah, at the time I figured that might be a little tough to do with how dark and mature those movies were. However, TT Games did it anyway.
How about a magic trick?
Well, mostly. They took every Batman movie, series, some of the comics, and of course the Arkham games, and just kind of put it into a blender and to turn into one, and it just works. I remember early on being blown away by the fact they combined the Batman 2022's Iceberg Lounge and Jim Gordon, but used it to remake the scene where Bruce sees Falcone or Maroni, whichever one of the two it was, from Batman Begins, whilst having Returns Penguin. I was just blown away by how they connected them all. Now I know that's fairly easy to do, how I mentioned it, but I can't mention the one that really blew me away because it's a spoiler for like the second to last level. The gameplay, however, was great. It definitely scratched that Arkham itch for me, and I'd had that for quite some time. However, I do have some negatives. Chapter 4 didn't really feel like it pushed the story along outside of introducing Batgirl and Nightwing, which, that was good, but I felt like I had Robin for all of 5 minutes, and then Nightwing's currently on the scene. I feel like maybe we could have left Nightwing until maybe even later on, or even saved him for a sequel, I just feel like introducing Nightwing the next chapter after I just got Robin, and considering chapter 3 was so short, I don't know, it kind of just felt like they were really moving along so people could move on to Nightwing knowing he's a fan favorite and they could have Batgirl there. It would have been cool, however, if they kept Robin a little bit longer, because it could have been like the Batman animated show from 2004 where you had Robin and Batgirl working underneath Batman. before he became Nightwing. I feel like that would have been a really cool thing they could have done. Anyway, I'm going off track. The second half of the game just goes at breakneck speeds, whereas the first half, chapter 1, 2, and 3, it did have a little bit of build-up, 3 moving a bit quicker than the other 2, but it was building up the world nicely with Gordon and Catwoman, and you watch them kind of progress. But I'm also aware that this is a game aimed at kids with, the idea of adults playing it, but it's mostly a kid's game, so I'm not going to dig into the story pacing too much. But I will say the tutorial does go on a little bit long. I get it, we're building up the League of Shadows, and as I said, it's a kid's game with Arkham Combat. We've got to be catering it to that type of audience and making sure that they know how to play the game and do the combat. However, the tutorial did not need to be almost an hour or so long, because it drags massively, because it's just the same thing over and over again. I feel like they could have found a new way of doing that. However, it was still fun. But I'm not going to lie to you, it wasn't really a low light for me this month. I like the 4 games I played for very different reasons. As of the time of writing the script and recording the audio for this one, I've done 1 game, but man oh man was it a good one. 007 First Light really surprised me, I gotta say. I went in with high hopes, hearing it combine the gameplay of Hitman, it's IO, but also Uncharted, my favourite series of all time. So I went in expecting some really good stuff here, but it completely blew me away. What I got was leagues above what I expected. We have a story that just grips you immediately from the first mission, filled with characters that are all just so much fun to see interact on screen, and all feel so real. But the real stars of the cast, because there were several, but the ones that stuck out to me the most, and it might just be that they had a good chunk of screen time, was obviously
Bond. James Bond.
Greenway was just incredible and deserves every bit of recognition he gets.
Ways at odds with authority, same thing in the Navy.
Q was fantastic.
Don't do it.
And Moneypenny was great.
Better get you up to speed.
Especially in Chapter 8, you really see Moneypenny kind of in her element with Bond, and it's just such a great mission, I found. But all 4 of them were incredible, and I loved every scene they shared. Amazon, if you don't hire Patrick Gibson as your new Bond, you're a fool, because he is right there and he's already proved himself. He's had a whole game now, a whole 20-odd hour game, and everyone loves him. I genuinely cannot see another actor playing Bond. It just works so well, and you can even have him being a bit of an older one, but I say still make him a younger Bond. There's so many little gaps that you could fill in. It's not as if Bond has ever really followed much of a consistent timeline. So I reckon hire Patrick Gibson, he deserves it. He's clearly proved himself. But if you do hire him, don't stop the games. We need more of the games. It's the best thing Bond has had since probably Skyfall in 2012. Now the gameplay, that was where it got me most, I gotta be honest. It genuinely surprised me. I was half expecting the slower parts of the missions, the walking around, tailing targets and investigating to drag on, but IO have mastered their craft with that style. But it was made all the more rewarding the moment the level went all-out action with either a car chase, massive gunfight, or just an insane set piece that I can only really compare to the Uncharted games. I love the little things like being able to throw your gun when you're out of ammo and the different types of gadgets. It just added a whole different level to play, Each gadget being different and contributing to the level differently, only being able to carry a select amount, which meant, you're going to want to replay the levels with each of the different gadgets to kind of work out all these different paths. I just think it's a great thing to add in, and obviously you needed the gadgets because it's Bond. You can't have a Bond game without the gadgets, so 10 out of 10 inclusion, absolutely loved it. But something that in particular impressed me was the first mission you do outside of the tutorial in the nightclub. There were so many ways to tackle the assignment, whether it was to sneak through the bar, go through the clothes room, the VIP access, or climbing the back of the stage. But then they one-upped themselves, because in the VIP area as Bond, you can flirt with a woman. And if you do, he says,
"What do you say? You want to get out of here?"
Meet me outside in half an hour.
I remember thinking, it won't amount to much. This is, an offhand comment. It's just to show Bond's flirty nature. That's all it was. Maybe they bring it up at the end in the final cutscene of the mission. Like, there's an alternate one where a character makes fun of Bond or something. I don't know. It turns out if you flirted with her, she'll come back looking for you whilst you're seeing your contact. And this is what happens.
Oh, Christ. Could we not do this?
You prefer her to me?
Please. I'm leaving.
Calm down.
What the? And who the hell are you? Acting all superior? I don't have to take this.
How about you put a leash on your girlfriend?
Listen, you and me? Not a good idea.
Damn right it's not. Don't believe a word he says. All smooth, but such a liar. Asshole.
I'm done. Deal's off.
I loved the attention to detail. It was incredible.
Were you listening to me, Neo?
Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress?
Now, I know I said earlier the game reminded me a lot of Hitman and Uncharted, which it did, but there were 3 other games it reminded me of, and one of them I've heard no one mention. But those other games were the Arkham series, because of how the combat hand-to-hand wise felt. You know, it had the Arkham, I think, animation, the combat animator behind it, so it really did feel like an Arkham game in that sense. But it also felt like Sleeping Dogs with the amount of destruction and, you know, the amount of things you could interact with in the environment, you know, throwing the different items at the enemies, and that was just a really nice touch. But the one I've heard no one mention, and it does deserve some recognition here, is Watch Dogs. Because of how those gadgets were used, it was really interesting and really fun, because it did just remind me of Watch Dogs with all the different hacking. And that's just, as soon as I started using it, that was the first thing that came to my mind. So you've combined it with, you know, 4 games that I really like, and, you know, Hitman, which is one I really want to get into, especially after playing this. It's completely sold me on it. So yeah, the gameplay-wise, incredible. Story-wise, incredible.
What's the downside?
I have 0 complaints, and if I'm honest, I thought it might have been recency bias when I played it, but I finished it 3 weeks ago, and I still have nothing bad to say about it. You know, you could maybe say that some of the levels, tailing bits drag on too long, but to that I say that's part of the fun, because if it drags on a bit too long, the payoff is usually going to be worth it afterwards. So I think it goes hand in hand. I don't see how you could have this type of game without them.
What's next?
So at the time of writing this, I'm playing Mass Effect 3 at the moment, and it's been a long time coming, because as I mentioned last time I did a Tales from the Backlog, I did 1 and 2 back to back roughly 4 years ago, and then I got massively burnt out and I never went back to 3, and I just kept putting it off because I didn't have the time. But I'm finally playing it, and while some of the information or some of the things I did in the previous games are a little bit hazy, I'm still massively enjoying it, and I definitely want to do a replay of the 3 of them back to back, and obviously I'm going to check out Andromeda. But right now I've got no real complaints about 3. I mean, I guess you could say I wish that the Reapers were a bit more of a threat, you know, we check in on Earth a bit more, but we might do that later on. I don't know, I'm still fairly early in. However, it's really good, and I know the main complaints come from the ending, so I'll be really intrigued to find out on that one. I have a little while now before I have any big releases. I think my next big release is August, and then that's going to run me through until February with the amounts coming out, because after the other week with all these announcements, Jesus. But I think I'm going to replay Persona 4 Golden. It's been about 6 years since I finished it, and with that remake trailer, it got me super hyped. I think I'll have to do a replay, especially a replay of FF7 OG as well, and the remake part 1 and 2 ready for Revelations in spring next year. You know, I haven't touched FF7 OG since, again, 6 years ago, like Persona 4, and I haven't done a replay of either remake or rebirth since they came out, so I think I should probably do a replay before this part 3 comes out, just so I'm, you know, up to date with what's going on, and playing OG will remind me kind of what we have left to go in this, because if I'm honest, I remember the ending, I remember little bits of it, but I do not remember all the ins and outs of where this story is going to go. Now, if I have some free time though, I wouldn't mind playing some Ratchet 2, or maybe some other smaller titles, who knows, maybe a replay of Sleeping Dogs, or maybe I'll do Killzone 2, just, you know, little smaller titles, things that you can smash out in like a weekend or a week. Something simple would be quite nice in between these big RPGs going on, you know? But in terms of new releases in the next few months, I'm not going to go and plan them out all the way till February, but in terms of the next couple of months on the horizon, the ones I'm most hyped for is Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. You know, I played Echoes recently, as I said, but I really want a new Fire Emblem to play, and I've been waiting for a game on the Switch 2 to kind of drop that really hooks me in, because I think the last one that did that was Mario Kart. Wasn't a massive fan of Donkey Kong, I'm going to be honest with you. So I'm really looking forward to playing Fire Emblem, especially with all those different routes. That's going to be a lot of fun to play. Onimusha is up there. I've not played the previous ones, but I really want to, but come on, it's Capcom. Capcom have got enough respect as a brand now and a lot of trust, so they could release pretty much anything. I'm going to pick it up because it's always a fun time. So I'm really intrigued to see what this one's about. Maybe I'll check out the originals before it comes out, at least the first one. And honestly, Star Wars Zero Company looks really fun, so I think those are kind of my 3 I'm most excited for on the horizon. I love a good strategy game, you know, like Fire Emblem. I haven't really dabbled in the XCOM games, but I've heard that this one's going to be quite similar to that, so I'm intrigued to see it. I mean, that trailer showed off Anakin Skywalker somehow. I thought this was set post-prequel trilogy, but I don't know. I'm really excited for this. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm glad that it isn't taking ages to come out. I think it was only announced like last year. But that's all from me today. I hope you enjoyed this little update. Definitely more backlog clearing than the last time, that's for sure. But if you did like this one, maybe hit that like button, and if you really like to support the channel, hit that subscribe button. I do uploads like this every 2 weeks on a Friday evening on various different gaming topics, so any type of support we can get would be great. And yeah, I'll see you in 2 weeks on the next upload.
Hasta la vista, baby.